Welcome back. Now we've got a good start here. We've got most of the content. And then what we've also done is we sort of organized it. We need to style it now. Now just before I get into styling, I'm going to do a couple little things. Bringing in basically the images and fonts. So I'm going to create two folders. One is going to be my images folder. And the other one, new folder, called fonts, and I don't want it to be below. I did this mistake last time. It made it a subfolder. Just pull that up. Good. So making sure that those are two folders there. Now the fonts, this is sort of optional. Don't worry too much about it. I'm just going to drag some fonts in that I've downloaded. So just give me a second here. And so the two fonts that I'm going to pull over, I'll show those in a second there. They're called Lansbury, and you'll see it show up in a minute. And then a few images that I'll bring as well. Just give me 1 second there. And just searching by time. And I'm going to change the names of them. I've got terrible names. So those are those images. And then just a second, I've got some logos as well that I'll bring over. And so I'll probably give you these logo images that we can use. These ones, just a second, I'm just going to rename that. And so you can just click on that, go rename. I'll call this the band picture. And then this one's going to be the one in the header. So I'll just rename this one background. Good. And so it makes it very easy. Here, don't worry, one's JPEG, one's JPEG. You could change it, it doesn't really matter. But we've got our images organized in an images folder and our fonts in a fonts folder. And we'll come back to those in a second. So the next thing that we want to do is make sure that our style is working. So I'm going to do a very basic thing at the beginning. I'm going to select the whole HTML. And in that whole HTML, I am just going to change the background color. And the purpose of this is just to sort of make sure that, I'm just going to do a terrible color at the moment, just make sure that everything is working in terms of the CSS. So that is working. Basically what I did is I set the HTML to red, and it just sort of proved to myself that yes, my CSS and my HTML are linked together. If they're not, you know, everything you're doing and nothing's going to show up. So it's just sort of a good thing to know. All right. What we'll do at the start is just set up a few things. I'm going to get rid of this. We're not going to have a red background, and I'll run that so it doesn't look so bad. We'll set up a couple little things. So for both the HTML and the body, which is basically, you know, the whole page here, you can just put a comma. We're going to set the margins to 0. And basically that just zeroes out all the margins. Those are sort of on the edges there. We're also going to zero out the padding. So padding, we'll set that to 0. And that just lets us sort of style from the start. It also gets rid of any difference between different browsers. They might have different sizes of margins, different sizes of padding. This just sort of zeroes it out. We'll also do that while we're at it here. And we haven't created a class here, but we'll get to this in a second. The nav UL, and we'll see that in a minute. We'll also zero out the margins there. So you've already been a little bit familiar with CSS, so this is just sort of starting to work our way through here. Okay, so one of the things is, remember, cascading style sheets, that whole idea, we just sort of say style sheets a lot of the time, but the cascading part of it refers to the idea that you can sort of style something generally and then sort of work on the specific. So the more specific the style, that supersedes the sort of the general style. And so that's where the cascading comes on. So what we're doing is setting up a few general styles like here at the beginning, and then we can sort of get more and more specific as we go through here. Okay, let me I'm just pulling up my notes as I work through here. So we're going to start working through, like I said, kind of from the top down. And so what we'll do is go back into the HTML, where are we here? There's at the very top, and put in a few sort of identifiers, basically some classes in here so that we can identify the sections. So right at the header, so inside there it says header, we'll put class is equal to, and we'll just call this the main header, okay, and put quotations around that, and then we'll be able to reference this specific header as the main header. The other thing that we'll do here is in this class for the nav, we'll also class is equal to, and we'll call this nav main nav. There we go. And again, just sort of identifying these sections. And I think we should be pretty good, except for down here, the H1 as well. We will give it a class, and we'll give it band name. And then specifically, this is going to be band name large. So the idea being here that we can style all the band names a certain way, and we could also be very specific about this one, making it a largest one. Okay, so we've got that set up. And again, nothing's going to run here because we haven't done any of the coding in terms of this style, so we'll just leave it and take a look at starting to sort of define and style our main header here. So I'm going to go back to the style.css. Just down here, we will put a dot main header. And you have to make sure that you spell it exactly like you did, or else it won't identify it. We're going to do a few things. First of all, we'll put a background color. Now, this here, don't worry too much about it. We'll talk about what's going on in a second here. Let's just go with it. We'll do RGBA, and A, remember, represents, whoops, there we are, the amount of, obviously, red, green, blue. The alpha, where did the alpha go? There we go. The alpha is the transparency. So you can choose colors in here. I'm just going to set in 0, 0, 0. So we're basically going to make it black. This is maybe helping me out too much. I'm just going to type these in here for 0. Oops, 0 and 0.6. Then I'm just going to get rid of all the rest. And basically, that's just a black, which is a little bit transparent. And we'll see that in a second here. I'm going to put my background image. So I'm just going to find my background image. There it is there. And what we need for this is you need the URL. And the URL is the same as the source. And so in this case, it's in the images folder. And then I need to find that. So it will be / and I think, I just have to open this up, I called it background.jpg. So background.jpg. And I think we should be good there. What we're going to do is almost like a little bit of Photoshop, is we're going to put a background blend mode. So I want that one, the top one. And we're going to use a multiply. This will just darken it down, just like it would in Photoshop. A couple other things. We're going to make sure that the image covers the whole background. So background size, and we'll use cover. So that will sort of stretch out the picture to cover the whole area. And we'll also put a little bit of padding at the bottom. And that padding will just sort of give us a little bit of room. And we'll see there in a minute. And 30 pics for the moment. Okay. So if I run this, what you'll notice, I mean, we've still got a few issues. We've got the image brought in. Now it's a little bit darker because, like I said, we've set this to 0.6. If I got rid of this, let me just, you don't have to do this, but just to show you, I'm just going to delete that for a second. You'll see the image is quite a bit brighter. Okay, so what that's done is basically put an overlay of it with a bit of a transparency, just to darken that image. Obviously we have to deal with the text too, make that brighter. We will in a minute. The background image came in, so the multiply, like I said, that sort of affects it to give it that darker. The cover let this sort of spread out. And what's kind of interesting is if you sort of make the image smaller or larger, so the page larger or smaller, the image adjusts to that, but it covers that section, okay? And this 30 pix at the bottom is this padding that's sort of down here. Now, if I just made it huge for a second, you'll see that this will pull all the way down. And so now we have a lot more padding there. So this number is just a number that looks reasonable, but you could obviously change that as you go. Okay, so it's looking better there. One thing that we'll do right at the start here is also start playing with the fonts. And so I'm going to bring in the font that I had here. Now, what that looks like, usually we put it right at the top. Let me just get the correct code here so that I can do it. Is I'm going to come right up to the very, I think right up to the very top, and I'm going to do this at font face. This lets you sort of bring in fonts that may not be on someone's computer. And so I'm going to create this font family, and I'm just choosing the name that it came with, which was Lansbury. And what you have to do is once you sort of say this is the font family, you have to load this family. So the source, we have to get the source. And again, we use the same sort of thing, the URL, and it is in my fonts folder, so font folder, so / and I have to type in the name there. So I'm just going to open this up, and I'm going to use the woof2 first because that tends to be the current one. So lansbury.woof2, and I want to make sure that I say what the format is. So just over here, format, and just the same name, woof2. And then I'm going to put a comma here. I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to copy all this. And I'm going to put, like, this is just the woof one. And this is just if there's an older browser that we can do that. So I think that should be fine. We'll also set the font weight. So font weight somewhere down here. I could have typed it in, I guess. Oh, like that. Okay, font weight. There we are. We'll set that to normal. So therefore it's not bolded or anything like that. And the font style, I'll type this in this time. Font style. We'll set that to normal as well. That just gets rid of any italicism or anything like that. Now I think just before we go here, let's just see if we can get a little bit of the text showing up. So what I'm going to do is actually style everything as well. So I'm going to put a little asterisk here, which basically makes it the default for everything. And don't worry too much about this. Beginning box sizing. This will just help us work. We're going to call it border box. I might explain this in class. We'll set the default font family to this Lansbury. There it is there. And the last thing that we'll do, we'll set the color, and we'll just, what I'm going to do is do a pound symbol and a 777, which is just sort of a grayish color. It takes away a bit of the harshness of the black. I'm going to run this. And now you can see that we've got sort of this gray that we can change after. But you see also the font has changed, and so we've got this Lansbury font, which is kind of these Smashing Pumpkins font. Good. So we've started on our style. We've got lots more to do, but it's looking good here.